Okay, there's got to be something in here I can use. Rubber band? Not really. Gloves? No. Oh, a ball. Actually, this is the wrong kind of ball. Oh, hey everyone, and welcome to Groove Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderlycone, and you didn't happen to bring a ball of string or maybe some yarn with you by chance? Yeah, I didn't think so. In this episode, we're going to be going back in time to fight the evil Minotaur. And I've been told that you need a sword and some string to do that, and finding the sword's easy, but the string, not so much. But we should really know the Minotaur inside and out. You know, what's its favorite color and food? Actually, I think its favorite food is humans, but regardless, we should be building the Machine Minotaur from our friends at the Moyo store. And if you haven't checked out the Moyo store yet, you definitely should. They have all kinds of cool builds on there with really neat LEDs and steampunk aesthetics. And once you find that awesome build that you're wanting to do, place it into your cart and use code GROOVE at checkout. Not only is this going to save you some money, but it's also going to support the channel, and I'm greatly appreciative of that. Now, there are a few questions that we have to ask when it comes to building our Minotaur, like, what are the tricky bits? How does the Minotaur parts all go together? And what tools do you need? These are all great questions, and we're going to get our answers. Let's get down to the workbench and open up our package, and maybe try to find some thread. And boom, just like that, we begin building the Machine's Minotaur from our friends at the Moyo store. And as you can see, yeah, there's a lot of parts here, and it might be a little overwhelming if you've never built one of these before. Even if you've built one before, it's still probably overwhelming. But don't worry, we're going to go through everything right now so that you can completely understand how this goes together. Starting off with our instructions. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of different colors there, and the instructions are actually extremely well detailed for us to be able to put this together. A nice change from some of our other hardware models in the past. Now, as we take a look at our instructions, we can see that we have a whole bunch of numbers next to our parts. Those correspond with the different bags we have when we opened up our kit. Yeah, there's a lot of them. And then my suggestion for you is to actually lay them all out in the beginning and ensure that you have all the parts before getting started on the Minotaur. And that's because sometimes you might be missing a bag or two. And if that happens, just contact the Moyo store and they will get you those bags right away. The next thing on our instructions is that X followed by a number. In this case, it's a 2, but it can go all the way up to 20, believe it or not. When we encounter this little X and then a number, we need to duplicate the parts to whatever that number is. So if it says X times 3, we need to build 3 of those parts. X times 20, 20 of those parts. The final symbol that we're going to encounter throughout our instructions is that plus and minus sign. That right there means that we need to mirror our assemblies that we are building for our left or right side. And you'll see throughout our instructions when we come across this symbol that you're only going to see either the left side or right side being built. And that means you're going to have to figure out how the other one goes together. My suggestion is to keep that part that you have assembled right to the left of you, and then just kind of work off that to ensure that everything is opposite of what it needs to be. I found this to be the easiest way of getting through all of this. Okay, now we've looked at our instructions, now we need to talk tools, and with this kit it does come with a few things for us to be able to build with, like a good pair of pliers and a screwdriver to connect most of our stuff together. While these two tools might be good for the majority of our build, there are a few other tools that you might want to have around to help you with some of the more intricate bits. Those two tools are... there we go, these two little guys. This is a nut key, and it fits perfectly around all the nuts that we're going to be using to build our Minotaur. This comes in handy when we're trying to get a little bit of leverage and kind of need something a little bit more than just pliers to hold on to the nut with. I would keep this around just in case. finally, a pair of tweezers. Yes, tweezers seem to make it into every one of our builds, and that's for good reason. These guys are great for reaching into our project and either balancing or holding on to something just to get it started. I found it really useful with our nuts, especially towards the end when we're trying to put all of our assemblies together. This little guy right here helped me get some of the things into the right place, and so for that, I would highly recommend having one of these just laying around. Okay, we've looked at our instructions and we've talked tools. There's only one thing left for you to do, and that's to press that like and subscribe button. We're currently trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, and I could really use your help. No pressure at all, though. Oh yeah, it's getting a little shiny over here, isn't it? Yeah, leg day. Oh, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. We have all kinds of cool projects coming on in the future, and knowing that you're going to be there, well, that's just awesome. Okay, well, let's get into the build. Ah yes, we're back, and I still can't find my thread anywhere. But as you've seen throughout this project so far, it's a lot of the same stuff, just kind of over and over and over again. And that's kind of the thing with these mechanical models. There's not really a difficult part of the build to do. There's the entire build to do. And while it's not necessarily complicated, it can be a little bit hard sometimes to make sure that the right parts are going in the right place. When it comes to building these mechanical models, the way that I like to look at them is like building a part kebab. And that's because we're starting off with a screw, that's our skewer, and then we're going to put a whole bunch of different pieces on there to create an assembly. Think of this as the vegetables and the meat. At the very end, we'll put a little nut on there, and that will secure everything in place. And then we'll grab another screw, put that through the assembly, and then put a whole bunch of parts on there and another bolt, and we'll continue on until we have a full little tiny assembly there ready to go. This is a tried and true basic tactic when it comes to building any hardware model, even the bigger ones here. And if you stick to this, I'm sure you'll be able to build any of them, no matter how complicated they get. Okay, let's learn a little bit more about our Minotaur. Minotaur comes together piece by piece, one can't help but think about the fact that the story of the Minotaur has started to fall down the wayside, and that most people these days when they see a Minotaur just know the Minotaur by its look. They know it hangs out in the labyrinth and it waits to get people that journey into the maze. But where did the actual legend begin? Well, my friends, as a time traveler, Theseus was my boy. So I got first-hand knowledge on this. Let's take you back in time a little bit here. I'll use my graphics as well. Pretty graphics. Nice ones. They look good. Our story begins on the island of Crete, home of the beautiful palace of Naxos. Here ruled King Minos, a man with a rather unique approach to divine gifts. You see, Poseidon, the god of the sea, sent King Minos a stunning white bull, a sign of favor because all the people started really hating him. So he was like, yo, gods, help me out. And they're like, okay, here, man, white bull. But instead of sacrificing this bull to Poseidon, as one does with divine gifts, Minos decided to keep it and breed it amongst his herds. Not really a smart move. Poseidon, feeling quite miffed at the whole situation, cast a spell on Minos' wife, Queen Pasiphae, causing her to fall madly in love with the bull. From this particular union, a rather extraordinary creature was born. You might know this creature as the Minotaur, with the body of a man and the head of a bull. King Minos, understandably embarrassed by the entire situation, commissioned the brilliant Daedalus to build a labyrinth to contain the Minotaur. And what a labyrinth it was. Twists and turns and dead ends and endless corridors. So many corridors. It was designed so that once you entered, you could never find your way out again. Meanwhile, over in Athens, things weren't looking too good. As part of the peace deal with Minos, the Athenians had to send 7 brave lads and 7 kind lasses to Crete every 9 years. They were thrown into the labyrinth and they never returned. Enter my boy Theseus, Prince of Athens and a decent bridge player. Determined to put an end to this whole grim tradition, Theseus volunteered to be part of the next group to be sent to Crete. He had a plan and a heart full of courage. In Crete, Theseus met the clever and compassionate Princess Ardenae, King Minos' daughter. Ardenae fell in love with Theseus and decided to help him. She gave him a ball of thread and said, "Tie this to the entrance and let it unravel as you go. I'll guide you back." Armed with just his wits and a little bit of thread, Theseus ventured deep into the labyrinth, through tunnels and corridors and giant archways. Eventually, in what some would call the center of the labyrinth, he faced the fearsome Minotaur in a battle of strength and cunning. It was truly the battle of the century, and I would have recorded the whole thing, but unfortunately my phone was charging back in the time machine, so I didn't have it with me. Now it was just a matter of following the thread back through the labyrinth, and eventually Theseus found his way back to the entrance, where Ardenae was waiting kind of in a panic. But once she saw Theseus and me, she knew that everything was going to be fine. They had ended a cycle of sacrifices and brought peace to Athens. Pretty good job. Okay, we've learned about the Minotaur, and now we need to talk about the one we're building. When it comes to our face, I ran into one big problem, and that was I ran out of pieces. Yep, I actually didn't have all the pieces here to build the Minotaur, and that's why I said earlier it's always a good idea to double check all the parts to make sure you have everything before getting started. Now this wasn't a big deal. I contacted the Moyo store, they sent me the parts within about a week, and then I was able to continue on. But it's still something to know. Always double check your pieces before getting started on a big project like this. Now, once I was able to get the parts and started assembling everything together, one really neat thing about the face is you can actually change how he's emoting here. You can have him either mad, angry, sad, or goofy if you want. And it all is just a matter of just kind of adjusting the bolts on the side of the eyes. One thing to note though, if you're going to be changing the expressions a lot, the nuts and bolts will get loose, so you'll need to tighten everything up over time. So keep that in mind if you're going to change the expressions on your Minotaur. Ooh, finally, we're making our Minotaur take shape by bringing all of our assemblies together. This is actually quite easy to do in theory, but hard to do in execution. There's really just a bunch of bolts and washers that go together to attach our arms and legs. But getting those into the right spot is where it gets tricky. This is when you want to have those tweezers around to kind of help you get everything into the right area and then begin tightening it down. You might have to put them into some weird postures first, but once you get everything in place, you can tighten it down and then put it into the right spot that you want it. No matter how much you tighten these up, they are going to come loose as you move the model around. So keep that in mind. You might want to have a screwdriver and a wrench there just to tighten them up if they get too loose. And boom, there we have it. The Machines Minotaur from our friends at the Moyo store in all of its glory. This build was not easy. I would say out of all of the hardware models that I've actually built on this channel, this one was the most challenging. And it wasn't like, there was one particular piece that gave me an issue. No, there was multiple things here that were kind of difficult. And while I didn't really go into detail about them throughout the building process, that's because I don't think that you are going to experience the same things as I did. The build itself is pretty well done. The instructions are very clear, and trying to get all the pieces into the proper area is not the problem. Where things become complicated is ensuring that you have all of the pieces to begin this kit. I can't stress that enough. Going through this kit and trying to do everything without having the proper parts puts you in a way of thinking that, okay, I can substitute A for B or C for D, but if you do that, later on down the road, you will end up screwing yourself over. And that's because these builds typically build off of previous steps from before, much like Lego and other 3D metal models that we do here on the channel. So if you substitute something later on down the road, you might find yourself in a predicament like I did multiple times throughout this build. But I can also say that there are a few different mistakes inside of the instructions, like they might tell you to put a bolt in place that's too small for that area. I ran into this on typically number 9s, as well as number 5s as well. And there's so many of them, for me to go through that with you, this video would be significantly longer, and I'm trying to keep all of these things kind of compressed. So if you're looking to build this model for yourself, I would say go ahead and do it. But just know that you might find yourself struggling in a couple of spots because of the parts, and also double check to ensure that you have all the pieces before getting started. You'll save yourself a ton of headache. And with that, Groovers, we're at the end of our episode. I had a really good time building the Machines Minotaur with you, and if you guys had a good time, don't forget to press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of cool content coming on in the future, and I would love to have you there. If you're looking to pick up a model just like this, or maybe build something very cool similar to it, check out the Moyo store. They have all kinds of great builds on there, and if you're looking to support the channel and save yourself a little bit of money, use code GROOVE at checkout. Until next time, keep building. Now, I haven't found any string, but I got myself some rubber band and a whole bunch of 3D filament. I think that should work.